We are here today to talk about how shifting one thing can make the difference rather than trying to shift everything. And we're talking about those, you know how at the beginning of the year, whenever we do our goals or we think, oh, I want to be like that, or I want to create something new, we think, okay, so I'm going to go on a diet, and then I'm going to change this, how I think about this, and then I'm going to, and then our brain goes, oh, blah, blah. So I was just thinking about that this morning because I read a post on Instagram and I thought, really shifting that one thing is making such a huge difference for me that I thought we would talk about that today.
Yeah. And I get it, because if you can just look at one thing differently, everything else ripples out. That's what we don't get, is if we can shift one distinction or one paradigm in our life, then that ripples out. It has an effect on everything without us having to do anything for the ripples. It's like throwing one stone in the pond gives you ripples across the whole thing without having to work at it for everything.
Yeah.
So and if we bring it to top of mind, then we're more aware of it.
And I think too, I get overwhelmed when I try to do too many things at once. And I have that tendency because my creative brain goes, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. Oh, I want to do this. And that applies also when I'm doing some personal development or noticing things that I want to shift about myself. Like, for example, I took on health and fitness this year, and I took on my conversation around money. But I've noticed since December, well, it was just before the new year, I started looking at what was my conversation around money, what was my conversation around income. And then for some reason, I happened to be on a challenge, and she had us writing a new statement every day, a belief statement. And then what are our thoughts about that? What are our feelings about it? What do we notice that's a conflict with that? And then writing our why. And then anyway, whatever the exercises were. And what I've noticed is the shift is subtle. It's that one small degree. And I didn't even think it was working, to be honest. There was sort of in the middle of the what? Sorry, I'm just kidding.
That's perfect. Yeah.
In the middle of, I think, March, I was so frustrated, and I got to writing it that day, and I wrote my belief statement. And you're supposed to write how you feel from a positive perspective. And I was just like, I don't feel anything positive. So I just let it all out, all the negative stuff first. And then I was able to, so there's another clearing conversation right there. But then I was able to create on top of that. Then what I noticed about 2 weeks ago, I went to an event, and I met a bunch of people, and I had a completely different experience with this group of people than I have in the past. People said, what do you do? And I shared everything. It was just so natural for me to share. And I was looking around later going, oh, I shared that I'm not just a branding consultant and a graphic designer, but that I'm doing these clear and create workshops, and I want to be a documentary filmmaker. And like 6 months ago, I would have sort of stumbled across those last two things.
Yeah.
And then I also noticed somebody had ordered a piece of art for me, and then they asked if they could get a bigger size. And I had a very minor kind of, oh, now I have to give a refund. And then all of a sudden I went, but wait, I could make a print. And then my whole view I shifted it. And it was a natural shift. It wasn't like I had to try really hard, but it was because I had been doing the work since December. Yeah. But it was so subtle, I actually didn't notice it until the next day. I went, oh, I kind of noticed what I had done because I do the thing every morning. And I was like, oh, I did that thing yesterday. So it was very subtle, but I see how it's impacting me, not just in my conversation around money, but I'm also I'm slowly taking better care of myself. It's like, I don't know.
The ripples.
Yeah, there's the ripple right there. And so I think if we consciously focus on one thing and shift it, it's like, Joanne, you said earlier, what was that thing about the airplane?
Yeah. So James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And in it, he talks about how compounding habits are, or that one little shift. So if an airplane leaves from Los Angeles heading for New York, but it switches 3.5 degrees, it will end up in Washington, D.C. But like when it hits Kansas, it's not that far off.
Right.
It's not until it crosses the whole country that slight shift makes a huge difference in the destination or where it lands.
Yeah.
The same thing comes with a slight shift in how we perceive something or how we look at something. Just that one little shift will take us, like up the graph way farther in the long run. And when you said that it didn't seem to be making a difference.
Yeah.
It doesn't at first. We have to just have faith and trust that it is making a difference. And these small little things will shift us to where we need to be or where we want to be. It's just like when you eat a hamburger, you don't notice a difference in the scales like when you eat it. But if you continue on that path, like in that shift, then you do. But as you were saying, like one shift in how I was thinking about money or finances, then all of a sudden there it is. Yeah. And I know too that when we put our attention on something, then, my mom actually this morning was doing a testimonial video for somebody, her coach, and she was saying that, oh yeah, I never noticed before. Her coach says all the time, as I do, but I'm the daughter, so who listens to me? That our energy flows where attention goes.
Yeah.
So when we do that, it's like more conversations Christine and I have together.
Yeah.
Just this morning, I got a new client and stuff has been rolling in my business. And it's like, oh, because I'm paying attention to it, because I'm shifting the mindset around it, because I'm just that one different perspective.
Yeah.
And the more attention we pay to it in the positive, not as I'm lamenting because my business is slow or whatever like that, but I'm actually excited and, so the more we're in conversation about it, the more it opens up possibility, the way I see things differently. Yeah. It's just like, I love that.
And I think,
and that feeling of overwhelm.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, yeah. Cause when I think about how many things I have to shift to get what I think I need to shift,
right,
in order to make my business grow or in order to be a better mom or to have better health, then you're right. I get totally overwhelmed and then I stop completely rather than making any move at all.
Yeah. It takes us out of the game, right? It's like,
oh yeah,
it really does. And then I think also what I just got when you were sharing is when we have that overwhelmment, I don't know if that's a word, but maybe we can add that to the it also, we can't see anything else. We can't see if an opportunity knocks on our door because we don't even notice it as that. You know what I mean? Like with that lady who wanted a bigger size. I mean, I had done an original watercolor at that size and I was like, well, I can't, make a watercolor bigger. It's original art. And then I'm like, well, I could make a print. Like I wasn't going to, but let's try that. So so there's, I get that's such a small example, but it's
it's perfect though.
Small things that those are the foundational pieces that if we can start practicing those, and practice, like we said earlier, isn't going to be looking like we think it will look. Like some days you're going to write all the negative shit in your journal, pardon my language, but you will. And then another day you'll write, I heard all the birds today and I'm so happy. Like it's those, it'll be subtle. And it's just, I always go back to climbing the mountain. Like I remember the first time I did the grouse grind, and for those who don't live in Vancouver, it's a hell of a hill. It's not a hill, it's a mountain.
The mountain.
You kind of, you get, you think you're doing well. Like I'm going, yeah, I can do this. This is great. And I'm like, not even a quarter of the way up. I'm like, okay. And then halfway up, I was like, okay, I'm not going any farther. But if I had stopped then, I wouldn't have made it to the top and had that amazing experience once I got there, right? Yeah. But there were between the quarter point and almost the top point, it was difficult, but I had to keep putting one step in front of the other, or I wasn't going to make it to the top. Ain't nobody going to carry me down. So I just think it's like we forget that we're all human and we have those days. And so I think just the subtle shift is if we can stick with it and the practice of it and just noticing that one thing and playing with that one thing. And
Oh, I love that word. Play with it rather than be so significant and
Yeah.
meaningful and angst about it.
Yeah.
How many clients do I meet that are, or how many people do I meet that are like in the middle of their story, they can't even recognize it as a story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 It's like, okay, so if I could just have some fun with it.
We could
And if
do.
you're not, you can't have fun if you're in overwhelm.
Yeah.
You really can't. And I like that idea of like just putting everything aside because we're in this instant gratification.
Yeah.
I want it all to be better now.
Yeah.
I want my business to thrive now. I want to be an amazing mom now. I want to have the house of my dreams today.
Yeah.
But it defeats the purpose. If we could
Well,
just manifest stuff instantly, we would think elephant and be crushed.
right. That's a really good point.
It wouldn't be any fun. You wouldn't have that journey. So I think that when we go on, oh, I love this. It's just coming through. Like when we go on vacation, we save up all year for it. It's the anticipation. But when we get on a plane, we're miserable from the time we get to the airport to the time we get to our destination. And that's the part that we should really be enjoying. That's the part that lets us adjust,
Ah,
reacclimatize from working to vacation. We need that middle part
yeah.
between the anticipation and the arrival of it, that journey part. I used to work for a resort, so I know when people arrived, they would arrive upset, mad, pissed off, cranky, all of those things.
Yeah.
And I always thought, you're on vacation. Like, how long is it going to take you to actually enjoy your destination? And
Yeah.
sometimes it would take them days, but they had that time on the airplane. They had that time on the airport to adjust before
Yeah.
they arrive. And I think that's what that 1% is. That's like our shift before we get what we really want or our goal or something,
Yeah.
so that we have time to adjust.
I think that's so great because there's something to be said for being ready. And I remember,
Mhm.
like, I still have my vision board up there from 3 years ago. And I remember listening to Gabrielle Bernstein, and she was saying how she had Oprah on her vision board. And it was on there for 10 years before, I think she said 10 years before she met Oprah. She also said if it had happened the year she put it on there, she wouldn't have been ready to meet Oprah. So it's like, I think there's something about climbing that, like taking that step, practicing, that prepares us. It's like going to the gym
Yeah.
for the first time. I remember the very first time I went to the gym and I did a bench press, and all I could bench press was the bar. And I was like, oh, that's it. I was surprised. Some people probably can't even do that. I don't know. The bar weighs 45 pounds. And at first in my head, I was making myself wrong. But then I went, wait a minute. These guys all started somewhere.
Yeah.
And,
We
within
forget that.
we do. And it didn't take long to be able to do the bar, no problem. But that's what I mean. I had to keep going back in
Yeah.
order to improve and get, put a bit of
And you
weight.
improve at each time you go by 1%
Yeah.
or 2% or 3%, not
Yeah.
100% or 50% or whatever.
Yeah. So I love this topic, and it's so rich. And I think we could, this also leads me to thinking, oh, we could talk about story and beliefs, and that can be future topics that we discuss, because I think there's a lot of stuff to unpack and look at and dive into.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So if you're watching us on YouTube, then please leave a comment, add to the questions, add to our conversation, because for us, we get together because it is a conversation and we can kind of feed off each other and go back and forth. So join the conversation, leave comments below. Tell us if you got an aha moment, or if you have an example of how this has worked in your life and you can totally relate to it. And if you have topics that you want us to have a conversation about, because we are looking to you guys to see really what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
We're talking about what comes up for us, because we talk several times a week now. And so we just started, okay, what came up that we want to talk about? So this is what our aha moments, or stuff that's shown up in our lives and has made a difference. But we want to know about what is going to make a difference for your life as well. So definitely subscribe to our channels, because you'll be watching them on both of us. Ding that little notification bell so you get notified when we put new conversations in the feed, and share with the people that you love, because because everybody can use a little conversation in their life. And yeah, I think that's all you say on a social media thingy.
I think so. And if this is on IGTV, then I think they all know what to do there
They
too.
all know what to do. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy your day.